I'm continuing with selection, and I'm going to talk about the using selection in a more complicated way. So adding else clauses and nesting, that's using more than one if statement inside each other. So today we're going to look at the else part of an if statement. So what happens if the condition is not true, and we're going to look at putting lots of if and else's together and how that can work. Please excuse the coughing. I have small children coughing over me. Okay, so last time we looked at very simple flow diagrams with just a true option. So nothing happened if that question, that statement wasn't true. So in this case, if it was true, it printed out you passed the test, and if it wasn't true, nothing happened. So we can add a little bit more complexity to that with an else block. So in this case, if the statement is true, if the mark is more than 60, then it will print you passed the test. If it's not more than 60, it will print you failed the test. And then whether it's true or not, it will carry on to work out the percentage of that score. So here's a code example. We get the score from a form. So the user types in what their score was. And then we test, is it less than 60? If it is, you've passed. If it's not, you've failed. So the difference with that one is that before we didn't have an else that explained what happened when you didn't pass, when the if statement wasn't true. We can also combine more than one if statement using some keywords and an or keywords. So here's an example of it in use. So we can say if age is greater than or equal to 68 and gender is equal to female, you can get your pension. Trying to think of a good example of an and condition. The pension where women get it at a different age to men is a good example. So if you're not both greater than 68 and female, so both of those things need to be true for you to get your pension, for that line to print out. If either of them are false, so you could be 70 but male, and that statement as a whole wouldn't be true, or you could be 64 and female, and both of those wouldn't be true, so that statement wouldn't run. So if either of them are false, it comes down and it looks at this next point. So it checks if your age is greater than or equal to 70 and your gender is male, you can get your pension. Any other combination of conditions will go to this else and you cannot get your state pension. So we can combine that in different ways, and there are rules about how we combine those, which are represented by these truth tables. So A is the first half of the statement. So in this case, A would be age is greater than or equal to 68. And B is the second half of the statement, so the one after the and. So that's the second half of the statement. And this truth table tells us what the overall result is if A and B are true. So if A is true and B is true, then that result of that whole statement is true. So A and B is true. So the code in that if statement would run. if A is false, rather if B is false or A is false, if either of those are false, when we're using an AND, the overall answer is false. And when both are false, it becomes false. OR is very similar, except that only one of the A and B conditions has to be true. So if both are true, the result is true. If one is true and one is false, it's true. If one is false and one is true, it's true. And it's only false if both are false. So this is an example, we would use an either or option. So for example, to get a discount on a cinema ticket, you either have to be under 16 or a full-time student. So either of those being true would meet the conditions, would make the overall statement true. Okay, so talking through some of these, we've got a variable called age, which we set to 55. We've got a film with a rating of 18. We ask the question, can the person see this film? So if age is greater than or equal to the film rating, they can see it, otherwise they're too young. So this one's fairly simple. 55 is greater than or equal to 18. It's definitely greater than, so they can see the film. If our person becomes 16, 16 is not greater than or equal to 18, therefore they can't see the film. Again, 1 is less than 18, so they can't see the film. Here's a slightly more complicated one. So we've got the slightly strange situation of a PG type film where you can see it if you're a certain age, be it 12 or in this case I've gone for 16, or you can see it if you've got an adult. So you need one of those two things, either to be older than 16 or to be with them. So we've got a special case here for if the film rating is equal to PG. So if it's equal to PG, we do this extra check. So we say if accompanied, by that I mean is there an adult with them? So if that is true, or age is greater than 15 is true, so if they're 16 or they've got their adult with them, they can see the film. Otherwise it prints a special message, you're too young to see this film without an adult. Otherwise it goes through to the normal check to make sure that the age is greater than, that should be greater than or equal to the film rating. Okay, so in the last one, accompanied was true. In this one, accompanied is false. So exactly the same checks, but this time it would come out as you're too young to see this film without an adult. Okay, so what we're going to do for this is take the code that you wrote for the simple if statements, the code that prints pass or fail on a test, and you're going to extend it so it follows this flow diagram here. So I've set out the logic so you don't have to think about what order to put your statements in. So we have a series of if statements, everything in the yes section. So after this branch here, that is inside the first if. In the no, it's inside the else. So all of that is inside the first else. So just to show you what it will look like, you're going to want to have your forms working together like you did before. this one's out of 120. So if it's more than 100, it should come out as A and give me the correct percent, which it does. If it's more than 80, it should give me a B. If it's more than 60, it should give me a C. There we go. And if it's less than 60, it should give me an F for fail. There we go. So that's what your code needs to do in order to complete this exercise. Once you've done that, there are a set of extensions that you can do. You can either type the numbers in as variables or plug them into a form so that the user can type in some values. I don't mind. You're practicing your ifs and your elses here.